back to this week's edition of Huck's DIY. We're on episode 2 of building our desk, and now it's coming time to cut our sheet stock. And to do that, of course, I'm going to use a table saw. You can use a circular saw for this, and a nice level, or straight edge, I should say. So basically, when I do this kind of stuff on my table saw, I don't know, I think my fence is just a little over 32 inches long, and I got a little piece of wood on there to extend it a little bit. But I'm going to show you guys how I cut a 4x8 sheet of ply on my table saw. And this is just a contractor saw, nothing special, not a big cabinet saw where you got nice support all over the place. So we're going to run through the layouts on our sheets, how we're going to cut those, and just real quick I want to run through normally what I would do, or I shouldn't say normally what I would do, I do something a little bit different, but what I have seen done from other people is they take a nice big level, excuse me, and they'll clamp it to their fence, which I only have a whatever it's a 4-foot level. The ones I've seen are like 6-foot, 8-foot levels. But what I do with my fence is I take me a nice long board like so, that's been sent through my planer, and I'm going to screw this right to my fence. So now I have not only support, it's actually more like this, not only do I have support way back here as I'm starting to shove this through my blade, but I also got it all the way to the end of the piece. So as I'm pushing out, my spotter that's going to be helping me, the only thing they need to do is support the piece as it's coming to them, rather than trying to make sure that they keep it on the fence or whatever, because as I push this through, I'm going to be pushing this way so that I keep my material against this fence and I keep it moving forward. And like I said, I've done this for a number of years. It's really easy, and once you do it a couple of times, I mean, some people's favorite methods are still, putting the foam on the floor, and that's all well and good, but as I creep up in age and football took its toll on my knees, bending down on the floor and cutting wood is just not for me anymore. So this is the method that I'm going to use, and I'll be more than happy to show it to everybody. It's pretty simple, straightforward, very safe. As I said, if I don't feel safe, I don't do it. So this is going to be one of those good ones that I hope everybody likes and appreciates a little bit. So we'll run through our layout on our sheet stock and go from there. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at what I should say is when I do my layout, I usually use SketchUp first, and that gives me a pretty good idea as far as my sheet layout, how it's going to look, what cuts I need to make. Now, the first cuts that I usually make are the full length of the sheet. You just get more usable material out of a sheet when you cut the whole 8-foot section. You cut down 8 foot rather than across 4 foot. So we'll take a look at the layout of the sheets. Now I'll be cutting 4 sheets, and I'll be cutting 4 sheets identical to one another. That's the really cool thing about when you get a chance to do duplicates. So basically what's going to happen is I'm using 3/4 inch stock, and that's going to give me a desktop thickness of 1.5 inches. or just under that. And then that will also, out of the same sheets, that'll give you my drawer sides, my drawer fronts, my aprons all the way around the desk, the the bottom of the case. So like I said in the previous opening, that we're going to be hitting an array of building styles. We're going to be hitting pocket hole screws. We're going to be doing a cabinet with drawers in it. We're going to be hitting drawer slides themselves. My drawer box construction, the false front drawers. So there's definitely a lot of action going to be going on this particular build. And then at the end of it, you know, we're going to be shooting some lacquer over the, you know, once we stain it, then we'll be shooting lacquer over it. And you know, that's a good little piece of information in and of itself. So you guys can see it's really a homemade spray booth that I use. I work out of a one-car garage, so basically what I do is I got cardboard that I'll open up my door and I'll put all this cardboard in there. And then I believe there was a plan similar to what I'm going to do. I think it was Shopsmith that had it, or Wood Magazine. One of those had different nice little setups for the cardboard spray booths. And just a word of caution: don't soak these things with lacquer, then start smoking around them or anything crazy like that, or setting off fireworks, because we all know lacquer's pretty flammable. So okay, so what I do is, like I said, I lay this out on SketchUp before I even, that's one of the things I use to estimate my materials when it comes to 4x8 sheets of ply. So what I do basically is I draw it all in, and yeah, I go right to size with it. I mean, yeah, I know I'm going to have a saw curve and all that, but when I do set up to cut, I do go like 1/8 of an inch big. Then I'll rip one side, then I'll bump it back over, and then cut it down to size so that I can keep the factory edges clean. So basically, to lay out on a sheet of plywood, I got a nice thick pencil that I use, and I did this in chalk so everybody could see it. Tape measure, and these T-squares. I mean, these are, in my opinion, invaluable. So then basically, how I got this laid out is I got my top, I got my sides, my bottoms, my skirts, all my drawer fronts, and then I got a little bit extra right here, which, with the grain orientation, I don't think I'll be using that for my middle drawer front. So that's just one thing that's got me baffled as to that's one important lesson for everybody, is that when you're doing your layouts, so like this area here, this is my drawer fronts, which is this area here. I didn't compensate the whole way for all the drawer fronts, so I'll figure out a way to squeeze out my my drawer front for my middle drawer. It's, you know, it's only a 2-inch strip, so maybe and I hate doing it. I really hate messing with the grain orientation, because it just, to me, it looks a lot cleaner when your grains are going all the same way. So that's pretty much it there. What we're going to do now is load up the table saw, get it all set, and you guys will get to see us put some 4x8 through the table saw. So here we're going to get ready to glue our legs up. Now basically what I'm going to do with this is, I've got 2 legs here, and I'm going to glue them up together in one set of clamps. The one word of caution I would give is when you're going to do a multiple glue up in the same set of clamps, you're going to need wax paper. You want to wrap one Me personally, I put a ton of glue on these things and I get a lot of squeeze out. Even though I come back and I clean it off in a half hour or so, I don't want to take the chance that these two legs will be glued together and then cause me a little bit of a headache to separate them. So basically what's going to happen is I'm going to take two pieces and I'm going to take all four of them, so spread glue all over them, and I'll fold that one over, put glue on this one, fold this one over, glue this side together, and then I'll take my wax paper, and what I want to do is I want to hit this side and this side with my wax paper. So if that means using a lot of this, then that's what I'll do. So let's get ready and glue these bad boys up. So basically glue, I'm going to use a little roller here to help get the glue spread across the face of these legs, and we'll get started on that. Okay, so that's what you're going for. You're going for a nice coverage over the entire width of the board. That's the reason why I use this roller, so that all of my pieces will be nice and covered, and that way I can get it done quicker. Now for the second set here. Guess this bottle's about shut. Just when you think you have enough glue in one bottle. Okay, so voila. Now, okay, so when I did this, I kind of did it backwards, but I'm kind of running out of time, so I got to start getting pressure on these. Even though I'm quite a bit big on my dimensions here, I just always like to have the habit of making sure that I'm flush on one end. Okay. Now the one thing that I like to use, or I like using, it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I got these big mosquitoes flying around my shop. Tells you what kind of summer we're having up here in Indiana. Okay, the reason I like bar clamps so much is I really like the amount of pressure I can put on things with bar clamps, as opposed to just twisting the parallel clamps with my hands. So that's why I still am sticking with these clamps here. pressure there on these bad boys. But this is the bad thing about bar clamps, though, is the room for the handles. And the reason I don't like these is the amount of luck that I do not have with these things. So, there we go. We got one set of legs going. I'll get the other one started up, and tomorrow we'll come back and get these cleaned up, get them squared up, and pretty soon we'll be putting this the legs together with the aprons, and then attaching our top, and then making our cabinet for our drawers. Then I'll show you guys not only what kind of drawer slides that I use here, but also the method that I use to make the drawer box and the measurements that I use to compensate for my drawer slides. So we'll get started on that tomorrow when it's nice and hot and humid again. Okay guys, so we got the legs out of the clamps, cleaned up. Basically what I did to clean these up is just ran them through the scraped off as much glue as I could, then I just ran it through my planer. Got both sides cleaned up. Now there's a couple things that I did notice on some of my, as tight as you get your clamp, sometimes you've got just imperfections in your joint. And I've got a couple of joints where I've got some openings, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my recipe for my own filler. That's what I'm going to put in here, so you can go back to some of the quick tips and see how I do that. And after doing that, I squared up one end. I got one end left in the rough. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to chuck up a nice little round over bit, an 1/8 inch round over bit in my router, and I'm going to break the sharp edges on these legs. Now there's other ways you can do that. You can sand it. I would caution not to use a random orbit sander to do it unless you're like really good with it. Instead I would break the sharp edges just by hand. Especially legs. Anytime you can round anything over, it's a pro move. You don't want somebody bumping into these and splitting open their toe, or if it's on the table, a little kid bumping into it and splitting open their head, because especially the harder the, like a maple and stuff, it's going to hold a really sharp edge. So the move is to break this round over this edge right here. And like I said, I'm using a router bit, and unfortunately I can't use my laminate router because I burned that up, so I got to use one of my bigger routers to do this, which is not a big deal because it is a pretty big surface that I'll be resting on. They also make a little, almost like a hand plane that you can use to put the radius on there, or like I said, sandpaper. And sandpaper, it's not a bad move. In fact, I do it. Mosquitoes again. It's been a horrible summer for mosquitoes, but anyhow, like I said, sandpaper's not a bad move. In fact, I've got 8 of these legs that I'm doing. If it wasn't for 8 legs, I would probably be rounding them over with sandpaper. So I'll show you the methods that I'm going to use to do this, and I'll even, I mean, like I said, sandpaper, it's easy, it's quick, it's cheap. For those, you know, like this one here, I just happen to have an assortment of router bits, roundovers that I've used various times. And router bits can get expensive, you know, especially when you start stepping up into the carbide stuff where you want it to last longer than 10 or 15 uses of rounding over hardwood. So we'll chuck up, we'll get this done, and from there what we're going to do, I got my apron. All I got to do with my aprons, I always wait to cut those until I know exactly what the thickness of my legs are. I mean, I know on SketchUp I sketch it up as that these were 3 inches by 3 inches, but sometimes when you start off with good intentions, you end up going a little under. Now my legs are like 15/16 because I was just not diligent enough on the glue up. I wouldn't necessarily say the glue up. The glue up was fine. I accounted extra material for the glue up, but it was the being diligent when I was running it through my planer and I forgot one side and I had to clean it up a little bit, so I ended up being about 2 15/16, which it's not bad. But if I would have already cut my aprons, that was definitely something that I would have to have accounted for. But I left my aprons as one piece, and then I'll go through, I'll cut those so that my legs are still in the same spot as what they were in the original design. So we'll get started, we'll do that. And also, I'm going to make my edge banding. There's 2 or 3 ways that you can make your own homemade edge banding. One of them being if you have, and these are just little scrap pieces, but if you have veneer, like a 4x8 sheet of veneer, then you can cut your own edge banding with that. I don't really particularly like using veneer for edge banding. There's also the iron-on edge banding, but I'm actually going to take hardwood and make my edge banding. I think it's I'll make it about I don't know, maybe an 1/8 inch. I might go just a fuzz under an 1/8 inch for my edge banding. I just think it's better looking. I can round it over. That's definitely one that I would do with sandpaper. And it's just, to me, it's just a better looking edge. And then once everything is stained, you're never really going to be able to, well, I should say most people won't be able to tell the difference between what's a sheet good and a hardwood. So that's basically what's on the agenda for right now is rough cutting our edge banding, getting our legs all prepped and ready, and getting the pocket holes put into our aprons and screwed to our legs. So let's get going. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I've already done it, is I've used this piece here as a setup piece, and I found the radius that I want to have on this, and it's a pretty aggressive radius, but like I said, you just don't want these sharp edges. So that's a 1/4 inch round over, or I'm sorry, I take that back. I believe that's an 1/8 inch round over. They do have a smaller one. It's a 1/16 of an inch round over, and I typically use those, but because of the size of these legs, I just think a 1/4 inch round over is a little more fitting. So basically what my setup is here is I'm using my bench dogs to support my workpiece, and it's not only just to support it, but it's to keep it from moving, so I don't have to continue to hold it. But there are these here. I use these for sanding pads. They're actually drawer liners. I think I got these at Sears, but I could also use that if I so chose to. So you got this option here, or a few bucks, and
Rockler makes these. These are bench dogs. They're the exact same thing. I'm going to use that to elevate my workpiece and to hold it down. So, I mean, out of that way I don't have to do it. And they're just one of my goofy dogs, so somebody must be here. Okay, so there we go. Like I said, now we got a nice rounded over edge. Now I will sand these. I got to finish sanding these because when I set my bit, I go a little bit to where I have just like a little ridge, just a little fuzz over, so that once I'm done sanding, I'm not back to a sharp edge. So I'll continue on with these legs, and then we'll get started on making our aprons and edge banding. Okay, so there we go. All these 4 legs here for the first disc is rounded over. And I'm actually going to leave this chucked up for when the next set of legs come out of the clamps. So, like I said, these I really like these Bench Dog bench cookies. Actually, I don't know if these are these are bench cookies too. Rockler has some that same exact thing. They take a beating real well, especially when you throw them on the floor. So we'll get set up. I'll measure out my aprons, and we'll get started cutting them and do our apron. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for this episode of Huck's DIY. Appreciate everybody watching this this past few weeks as we've delved into a lot of information on construction. So, a couple things to remind everybody with is, first of all, don't forget to enter into our drawings. Pretty cool little giveaway there, giving away some magazine subscriptions. Number 2 is, for those of you that subscribe to us on iTunes, how about give us a review? It's important to anybody to know that we're doing what we say we're doing, and some feedback would really be great on that. So those 2 big things there, I'd appreciate it. Next week, what are we doing? Next week we're going to finish up with these aprons. We're going to put our edge banding on the aprons. Jeez. Well, we're going to start putting this thing together. We got to cut the aprons for around the desktop. And when I mean the aprons, it's actually more of an edge banding going around the desktop, because the desktop is 1.5 inches thick. I mean, this is just exactly what the desktop's going to look like, but it's going to be thicker. So we'll be doing that. We'll be getting that buttoned on there. There's a couple methods that we're going to use to attach the edge banding. My personal favorite is using a, I think it's a 21 or 20 gauge, 21 or 23 gauge pinner. And then for the big aprons around the desk,
or the big edge bending around the desk. I'm actually just going to use pocket hole screws. So we'll get that. We'll actually put the legs and aprons and the top all together. Then we'll start with the carcass for the drawers. We'll go through that, making the drawer boxes. That's I think that's going to be another episode, because that's I want to go pretty in depth with that one. That's I've read a lot of forums on the way, the questions that people ask about putting in drawer slides. So I'll go through what I do when I put in a set of drawer slides, and I get to put in 4 sets on each desk. So I better be pretty darn good about that. So join us next time. Like I said, don't forget, get in for that drawing. I mean, it's it costs you a few minutes of your time, and I get my my Vanna White out here to draw the names out of a hat, as winners are picked at random. Also, give us feedback. Let us know. I want to make sure that, you know, that my style of construction versus those of the guys that are doing it now and doing it in a serious way is, you know, with Matt starting it, and then you got a little bit of what Mark does, and then what T-Mac does, and the phonology guy, and his name escapes me for right now, so I apologize for that one. He just started making them here recently again. So, and then you see what mine is, my style of construction is. You know, I'm not historically accurate on a lot of things, as far like T-Mac. Tommy McDonald out there in Boston, he had the opportunity to go to a great school out there. Mark Spagnolo, and I'm wondering, Mark, I hope you're not related to the guy that's coaching the Rams. Just throw that in there. But Mark had the opportunity to kind of do an apprenticeship underneath somebody, and you can definitely tell in their works. Whereas, yeah, I took woodworking classes for 5 years, but it was more of the whole 32 millimeter production based stuff. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully I'm meeting everybody's expectations on how I'm presenting my information. So please leave me a review. I'd appreciate it. Sign up for our drawings, and I am turning this camera off, getting inside, because I am tired of donating blood to these mosquitoes. You would not believe this was northwest Indiana, with the size of these mosquitoes. They're flying around here like jumbo jets. So that's it. I'll see you next time. Stay safe in your shops, and don't forget to leave me a review.